Let me explain first a little bit about the tool. As you see, I'm diving in the tool right away. What I will do is I will explain to you some of the important functionalities of Targetprocess that are relevant for rapid learning cycles. So let me give you a quick view on what the tool is about. As you can see, it's a web-based application. I'm running it here in the browser. On the left-hand side, you see a menu. I'll talk about that a little bit later. On the top right, you see here, let's say, filters that you can turn on. I will talk about that too. You see an action button. I will show you later. Here on the top, you see a field where you can search almost anything. Here on the left-hand side, you see something which is called My Recent. Here you can see all the things you've done, actions you have recently done in the tool. And here is a notification area where you can see all kinds of notifications that you have subscribed to, so that you can see, for example, when a knowledge gap has been updated that is of interest to you or a key decision. Now, and of course, in the middle, you see, let's say, the screen where all the information is provided. If you look at the menu, I've tried to put here sort of a structure where you can see the steps and elements in a rapid learning cycles program. And we are going to go through them. As you can see, I've made it a set of favorites in my Targetprocess environment. And there's a lot more information in the tool available, which I'm not going to dive into now. Let's focus on rapid learning cycles, and let's start with the core hypothesis. One of the things that rapid learning cycles does very well is allow people to collaborate together. And so one of the things that we always do with customers is we want to collaboratively decide what is the final core hypothesis. Most of the time when we talk to different people, they have their own view on what the core hypothesis is. So what we do is we say, okay, let's talk about that together, and people can sort of contribute to that. So if I click here, for example, ideas, and I say focus on this, we can focus on this area, and people can just add, let's say, ideas of what they think is, for example, a core hypothesis, right? We can go here, we can say something about technology, all of that. We can collect all of the ideas, everybody can add, everybody that is part of the team can add their ideas of what the core hypothesis is. And at a certain moment in time, we of course want to come to an agreement what the actual core hypothesis is. And so what you can do then is you can have a discussion with the team, and at a certain moment in time, you're going to choose, for example, and say, this is the core hypothesis for the customer needs, and this is the one for new technology. So it's a very easy way to sort of make a decision of what the core hypothesis can be. And the good thing about this is that all the ideas that have been generated in time are kept in the tool. So basically, you will never lose them. And as a result of that, you can always go back in time and see, okay, what did we talk about, and how did we come to this, core hypothesis, and how it was built up. So the next step that is important is to talk about key decisions, because when you have the core hypothesis, based on that, you are going to brainstorm on key decisions. And in this case, you see a screen where I have created, let's say, swim lanes for the teams. And each team may have one or more key decisions. And so in this case, it's also very easy to add a key decision. The team can participate. Everybody in the team can participate. You can just add a key decision here. As you can see, the project is already pre-filled. The team is already pre-filled because I'm adding it in this swim lane. And in this swim lane is the microbiology swim lane. So as you see, the key decision is very easily added in this case. And as a result of that, a number of decisions, and basically these are not key decisions yet, these are candidate key decisions, because you have not made really a qualification, whether it's a key decision or a regular decision. And for that, basically, after you have, done the brainstorm, you can go into classifying these key decisions. And you see here the, I would say, the quadrant that is very well known from Catherine's rapid learning cycles framework, where you basically have a division between, on the top right, a key decision, on the left top, a known solution, on the bottom left, a no-brainer, and on the bottom right, a best guess. And you see these names already here. So if I move this one to, let's say, a best guess, you immediately see that it changes as what type of decision it is. Also, if you move it here in this quadrant, you see it becomes a key decision and it immediately turns green. As a result of that, it's very easy to sort of, go around and qualify which are actually regular decisions that you are not going to, let's say, work on in a rapid learning cycle framework. But you may want to keep them in the tool, right? So if you, for example, let's go back to this one where you brainstorm. One of the things that you can do here, and that is something you can do everywhere in Targetprocess, is clicking on a key decision. And as a result of that, you will see the details of that key decision. So here, for example, what you will see is a standard template for the key decision report, where you talk about what the key decision is, the purpose, what you've done, mostly the knowledge gaps that you've closed, what you've learned from those knowledge gaps, and what kind of recommendation or decision you have made. And there should be an example in here. I seem not to find it right now. But here, by this key decision, you see I created it. And as a result of that, this template was created. In addition, you see that the team is assigned, and I can, for example, assign a key decision owner, because every key decision has an owner. And for example, I'll make Lisette the owner of a key decision. Also, if you go to key decisions, you can immediately go to, here you see the example of Catherine that you provided in the training, most of the cases, Catherine, where you see all of the text, also a picture in here, and what the recommendation is. Okay, so once we have classified the key decisions, like we have done here, we can go to a key decision flow. And the key decision flow, everybody knows, is like a sort of a timeline when key decisions have to be made, but it's not actually a date. So what we have done here, we have just created a number of columns. So on the swim lanes, you see the teams again, and in the columns, you see a first, when a key decision has to be made first, then the second, then the third, then the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth. So you can go a long way from creating a flow of key decisions. And basically this.
And I just have to say about this, I think this is a really nice solution for kind of giving people a place to play with their key decisions as they're beginning to understand them. And what the important thing that's happening during this step is that people are beginning to internalize the logic of the program, the way that knowledge is flowing through the program. And so I really like this solution as a way to keep time scale out of it, but still allowing there to be a little bit of structure so that it's clear and easy to follow the sequence. I get asked a lot about why we don't put sequence in, or why we don't put timing in at this point so much. And it's because people can get really hung up on the timing. And what we really want them to be working with at this point is the flow of knowledge through the program. And I really like what you've done here to really help keep the stuff that's distracting off of this view. Yeah.
Great, thank you. again, you know, here, if you want to focus on a team, you can, for example, say, you can click here and say focus, and then you only see the view of the team, of that specific team, if that's what you want to do. Also, the functionality provides that you can, again, click on this and see all the details. That's standard functionality you always have. So every time when you see, for example, a key decision or any card, basically you can click on it, go into the details screen, and make some changes. So basically, this is very simple, because what you can do is you can just take a key decision and you can drag it, for example, to the position where it should be, right? For example, like here. And then it basically, and this is how you can play around with creating the flow that you want to have. So if you have done all of this, so you've created, you know, the key decision, you maybe have put in here the question. Here you can see there's all kinds of possibilities with the editor, like a regular editor. You can add, like you see here, pictures and all kinds of fancy diagrams. We've seen with customers, they have created all kinds of 3D modeling pictures, which look very fancy in these key decision reports, but actually they're also very helpful. Mm-hmm. So then, of course, you may want to see the list of key decisions. There's now some additional information here, but here you see, for example, a description of the key decision, who's the key decision owner, how many knowledge gaps are attached to it, what the state of it is, which team is responsibility, and in which integration event it's going to be discussed. And of course, this information is already filled in. It was done based on a set of test data that Catherine provided us. So as a result, you see already that information is filled in, but of course, you can imagine that you can fill all of this information in, because if you go in here, you see here, for example, the learning cycle. You can click on it. You can choose the learning cycle that the sorry, you can choose here the integration event that you want it to be in, and based on that, that connection will be made in the tool. Okay, then there's a decision Kanban. We've created a simple view to sort of understand where key decisions are from a progress perspective. So you have key decisions that are basically open. Maybe knowledge gaps have not been worked on yet. There are key decisions in progress. They are worked on, for example, for the next integration event. And there may be key decisions that have been made in a previous integration event. Now, if you want to see, let's say, an overview of key decisions, there is like a key decision dashboard that is in the tool, where you can, for example, see what are the integration events, which key decisions are planned for which integration event. For example, you can see how many key decisions there are, how many are open, how many have been done, and how many are still in progress. We'll talk about risks later. You can see here how many key decisions are owned by different key decision owners. You can click on this diagram, you can click on data, and you can even go into all of the details here. If you click a key decision, then you go to a details screen where you can actually dive into the details of this key decision again, like we've seen in the previous screens. And that is standard functionality. If you want to zoom in a diagram like this, you can do something like this. And here you see, for example, the key decisions per integration event, per key decision owner, and how many they have. Like here, the number of key decisions, for example, for Edwin in integration event 4 is 3 key decisions, whereas for Lisette, it's 2 key decisions, and for Walter, it's a single key decision. So as a result of that, you have a good overview of where you are from a key decision perspective in the program. So moving on to knowledge gaps, it's pretty much the same approach where we, for example, have here on the lines or on the swim lanes, we have the key decisions. And the team can just add knowledge gaps as they go. It could be in the beginning when you brainstorm knowledge gaps and you want to come up to build a learning cycle plan. But of course, this learning cycle plan is like a living plan. It changes. Knowledge gaps may be added, knowledge gaps may be deleted or changed or whatever. So all of that is facilitated here because you can just add a knowledge gap. You can just add it here, and it is added to this key decision. And we'll see later what information you can fill in there. For example, in this case, you see that it is a don't do knowledge gap. That's the standard implementation. That's the standard priority. So if you want this to become a priority, you have to actually manually set this to a higher priority, because otherwise it's not going to be done. Setting the priority is something you can do here. So let me see, where is this one? This one is at 341, which is this one. This is the new key decision. As you can see here, nothing is set, and as a result of that, the priority is don't do. But if we, for example, set that the criticality is 5, the duration is 1, and there's no uncertainty at all, then you see we have to do it now, right? And it's automatically calculated. And if we vary these, let's see what happens now. It says prioritize next. So this is like the calculation of the matrices that Catherine has provided for rapid learning cycles, so that you can automatically calculate the right priority.
So I'll be interested to see whether or not, or how it changes things with, because what you're doing here that we're not doing in the default way of doing it is keeping the knowledge gaps for the key decisions together, so that it's much easier to look at them side by side. And that when you're working with either physical or virtual sticky notes, of course, what you're looking at is a pile of knowledge gaps that are all related to the same key decision, and they're nearby each other, but they're not like in a list format like this. And I'll be curious to see if that actually, if that makes it easier or harder. I'm not sure. But it's kind of interesting to see how that's presented, because my hypothesis would be that it might actually help people make better decisions about prioritization, to be able to see it more cleanly like this. Yeah.
Yeah, and if people want to see it in a different view, that's not too difficult. Because here, for example, and I'm not sure how this is going to work out, but I can change the view, for example, to a board. And then I again have the
that
same
looks much
thing.
more like what it looks like in the physical space. Yeah.
Right. So you can very easily real time switch to another view. So you can just choose what you want and what works best for you. Right, so this is how this works. Here you have a view where you can see all the knowledge gaps details, for example. And then now you can, for example, sort on ID, but that's not such a, let's say, relevant functionality. It is relevant to, for example, prioritize and sort on the priority. And here you see all the do nows and then the do next. So you have a list of prioritized knowledge gaps. And here you see also the ones that are closed. Now, if you one of the things you can also do is go in here, and you can, of course, add all kinds of activities to a knowledge gap, because when you want to close a knowledge gap, some may be very easy, but if you have to, for example, set up a whole test environment and test all kinds of things, you can easily add here, for example, additional activities. You can say add and open, go directly to it. Who's the knowledge gap owner? I'm assigning everything to Lisette now. I know she's in the microbiology team. I could set a start date, a completion date, and I know to which knowledge gap it belongs. And if I go back, then I see there are 2 knowledge gaps here. So if I am in two activities here, And if I am in this knowledge gap, I can easily switch, for example, from this activity to this activity and still stay in the same screen. Okay. Then also for knowledge gaps, we have a simple way to maintain progress. And let's create a little bit of more real estate. If you click on this one here, you can hide the menu. You only see, let's say, icons. And as a result of that, you have much more space on your screen. So if we go to the knowledge gap Kanban, this is the one I created just now. So I can say, well, this one is now in progress. People are working on it. And when it is done, I can move it here and say, hey, this is done. So it's a very easy way to do it. If you want to do it in a different way, you can also go here. It says state. You can set it to open, in progress, or done. It has exactly the same, let's say, functionality as when you drag it over the Kanban stage. Okay, then when you have a core hypothesis, when you have brainstormed key decisions, you have classified them and made the distinction between what are regular and key decisions. When you have knowledge gaps and prioritize them, then you can also create a learning cycle plan. And that looks like this. And let me show you that what you see here. You see here, for example, teams again on the swim lanes, attachments team, control team, microbiology, oceanographic, and program team. In this case, what you will see is that the yellow cards are again the knowledge gaps and the green cards are the key decisions. As you see here, there are lines between knowledge gaps and key decisions. These lines show that there is a relationship between this knowledge gap with this key decision. Also on the card, you see here a reference on the knowledge gap to the key decision it belongs to. Now, why do we have these lines? Well, if you, for example, make a plan and you want to plan knowledge gaps, you have to make sure that the knowledge gaps are not done after the key decision, because that isn't working. So suppose I'm doing this, then you see that there's the line, the relationship turns red, and there's a planning issue, because in this case, what you do is you are planning a knowledge gap after that the key decision has to be taken. Here you also see an indication. Here's a planning issue. I can click on that. Everything is grayed out except for, let's say, the key decision and the knowledge gap that create the planning issue. And as a result of that, you have a really good focus on the thing that you have to solve. Now there's, let's put this one back. Now the other thing you can do is you can say, okay, well, this is, I need to work on the plan, but I want to focus a little bit. So let's focus on the key decision. So see, now we've focused on one key decision in the entire plan and all its related knowledge gaps. As a result of this, the attachments team can now really focus on, what's the plan around this key decision, which are the knowledge gaps that are related, and how can we make sure that these can be done, right? Because they also want to see, what kind of capacity do they have from May 1 to 19, from May 22 to June 9, etc.
I think it's a good time to point out that one of the limitations of Targetprocess is that he does have to put the learning, the key decisions and the knowledge gaps in the same column. When we have a tool that has a little bit more flexibility, we intentionally move the key decisions into columns that represent integration events. But of course, an integration event is an event, and these are assigned to integration events. There is something in Targetprocess called an event, and they're assigned to the right integration events. It's just not quite as easy to model that in this tool as we can when we're making up our own columns, because we're just using sticky notes or a virtual equivalent that has a lot more flexibility. So that is one thing. I don't think it's going to be an issue, but you do have to remember that the whole thing about key decisions that's important is that they do get made at integration events, where you have the right people together and they're considering a set of key decisions together that are important for the program to move forward. So just because you've put it in a learning cycle doesn't mean that it can be made any time between June 12th and June 30th. What it really means is that it's going to be made at the integration event that will be at the end of this learning cycle. And so that's going to be an important thing to kind of keep in mind for you, working with your teams within this tool, is that we do kind of separate them intentionally when we have the ability to do that, to emphasize that there is a point in time where these decisions will be made, and it is the integration event. It's just not made visible in this way of looking at the learning cycle plan. Yep.
No, in this view, you cannot make that visible. Therefore, we also created a different view, which is called a roadmap. And that's where you actually see, in time, you see the learning cycles, but you also see the key decisions connected. And they always are placed at the end of a learning cycle. That's what you see here. You can also have in this view, you also see the integration events, which is a green flag, because key decisions are green, Catherine, right?
Yeah.
And so what you can do here is you can select an integration event here. And as a result of that, only those key decisions that need to be discussed at that integration event are seen. And a similar thing happens, for example, if you look, let's say here at the learning cycle event, you see which learning cycles or which knowledge gaps are connected to that specific learning cycle. Now, this is still a little bit of a difficult view. So what you can also, or we have also created, which is very simple, is a list where you see the integration events and which key decisions are going to be discussed at which integration event, right? And this is very simple because in this case, I could, for example, move a decision from one integration event to another integration event if I want to do that, right? Or I could even create an additional integration event, which could be the case where we say, hey, we do not only have 4 integration events, but we have to create another integration event, for example, integration event 5. And here you can see, you can just create that integration event and you can set a date for that integration event. And it can happen anywhere in a learning cycle, because that's what rapid learning cycle says. You can have an integration event whenever it is actually needed, and it can be done. So the same is for knowledge gaps. You can have learning cycle events, and learning cycle events discuss knowledge gaps. So you can connect a knowledge gap to a learning cycle event. And as a result, you can see which knowledge gaps are discussed at which learning cycle event. And you can even move knowledge gaps from one learning cycle event to another learning cycle event. So this is 2 very simple ways to, for example, attach either key decisions to an integration event and knowledge gaps to a learning cycle event. Now, if you then go, for example, again to the dashboard, there is, of course, also a knowledge gap dashboard, which you can see here. Suppose we are at learning cycle or going towards learning cycle event 2. It's planned for June 9. We have 4 knowledge gaps that we need to discuss. Again, in this dashboard, you can still go to the details of a knowledge gap if you want to. You don't have to switch to another screen if you don't want to do that. Here you see, for example, how many knowledge gaps each team has and in which state these knowledge gaps are, whether they are open or being worked on or whatever. You can see here the knowledge gaps per person. You can here see the knowledge gaps, the number of knowledge gaps per learning cycle, for example. Learning cycle event 2, you see here that there are 4. And here you see, let's say, the plan, the roadmap plan for the knowledge gaps and when they are planned to be picked up and in which learning cycle. So this dashboard is pretty much used by people that want to have an overview, and from that overview want to zoom into the details. And again, like at the other dashboards, you can, for example, go in here, click on it, go to the data, and then you see exactly you know, what knowledge gaps are behind the data and how they have been counted. Okay. Closing these ones, because I would like to say something about risks. We have added some functionality about risks. One of the things we've done is we've added a risk list, which you can see here, and we also created some color coding. If you, for example, are not able to close a knowledge gap, that might, as a result of that, there might occur a risk because you have to make a key decision with less confidence. As a result of that, you may want to add a risk to it. What we have done is we've created some qualification for the risk. So we've basically borrowed this from a customer from ours, where they qualify risk based on impact and chance of happening. Now, for example, if the impact is a 2 on a scale of 2 to 10, and the chance of happening is 0.1 to 1, then basically there is a graph behind it which says, okay, if you count these two, if you multiply these two, then they are either yellow, or sorry, they are either green. That means the risk is not very severe. They are yellow, which is a medium risk, or they are red, and then it's a real severe risk. And so, for example, again, here there's a calculation. If I put everything on the top, you will probably see what will happen. If I go somewhere in the middle, then on this time it turns, where's the, yeah, here's the turning point, and it turns yellow, for example. As a result of that, you have a very easy overview of where your risks are. Risks are, if you go into the details and go to the relationships, you see here that you can actually link the risk to a key decision so that you know exactly which key decisions actually have risks. And that's also something you can see in this next board. These are the key decisions that actually have risks with them. So you know which key decisions you have to dive into if there are any risks associated with these.
Yeah, but I really like this as the potential to kind of keep the risk that an unclosed knowledge gap represents, and to have a way to keep that visible in the tool. Yeah. And also to kind of highlight that something that's red probably needs to have a key decision associated with it, because even if the key decision is how will we mitigate this risk, right? Because of the fact that, that's definitely a high impact, high unknown thing that is also likely to occur. And so that kind of pushes it into the thing of like, well, if we don't have a key decision around this, we probably need to think about why that is. And so, yeah, I really like making this visible. And then kind of another piece is in the next version of the Rapid Learning Cycles framework, the one that we're releasing this fall, we'll have a little bit more emphasis on the risks piece, because that's been really useful for helping people get the right set of key decisions. And so in the new version of the kickoff event flow, there's even a step for defining risks, NUDs, new unique difficult items, and uncertainties. And, kind of like, and I love that there's already a home for those things in the way that you guys have laid out this tool, because again, those point towards areas where there's key decisions, and maybe areas where there's not, maybe areas where compared to everything else going on, that the uncertainty is more manageable. And so really appreciate going ahead and putting this just right here like this. Yeah.
Yeah. And if this needs to change based on the new insights, then of course, we will be one of the first to implement that, Catherine. So keep us posted, please.
Okay. All right.
These are, let's say, the standard functionalities that we currently have built into Targetprocess. One of the things I would like to do now is to show you a little bit about, how quickly you can build views and boards and reports in Targetprocess, because that gives you a little bit of an indication of, how much flexibility there is in the tool. So let's go in here and say create, and I just want to create a simple list. Now, I go into a configuration screen, and I can choose all kinds of templates that are available. I'm going to do a setup from the start, so that you get an overview of how this is working. What I'll do here is here you see, for example, all kinds of elements in target process, and one of them is a key decision. So I'm going to choose a key decision, and immediately you see already here a list of key decisions appearing. But it's not only the key decisions, it's all key decisions that you see here, or basically all decisions. So basically you can use, for example, a filter, and maybe you've seen it. And there is something which is called decision type. And it helps you, target process helps you. Decision type is, type a space, and I get the options of the decision types that I have created in target process. And I only want to see key decisions here. Put enter, and now I only see the green colored key decisions, and those are really the decisions that are key decisions, right? So as a result of that, I now have my first list. I can say, okay, I want to customize my cards. You know, I want to see the key decision owner, and maybe I want to see, you know, how much knowledge gaps there are. I want to see, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do that, because then you can actually, you know, read the name. Maybe I want to know what the team is. So I can, for example, here, each team I've created an icon for, but I can also choose something else where I have not only the icon, but I have the name of the team. Let me see, where is that? No. Team. Oh, so for example, this one. Right, you see the icon and the team. Now let's see what else can we add here. We can say, okay, this is the project that it belongs to. We can say, you know, what is the milestone? It says here in target process, but that's basically the event that it belongs to. As a result of that, I have my first view, right? And this is very similar to a list of key decisions. What you also have is immediately the functionality where you can click on the key decision. You see the details of the key decision. Within the key decision, you can immediately go to the knowledge gaps, because that's all pre-configured functionality. Now, as a result of that, you can, you know, pretty quickly build a decent looking view with all kinds of functionalities. Now, let's go into a little bit more of detail. Let's say we also want not only key decisions, but we want sort of a hierarchy of key decisions and knowledge gaps, because that's, you know, easy to navigate. So I'm turning this one off, and I'm going here to, where is my key decision? And key decision, and here is, I want to draw knowledge gaps, and this filter is incorrect because it was focused on the key decision. So I have to put the filter here. Ready, set. And now I have a list of key decisions, and I can immediately see what are the knowledge gaps under those key decisions. So as a result of that, you can pretty quickly build all kinds of views in target process. And of course, if you go to actions instead of view, you can, and you go to customize cards, you can customize your key decision card. For example, who's the owner, like what I did before, but you can also customize your knowledge gap card. So as a result, you can have this. You can also easily switch views like this, where you have, let's say, here a list of knowledge gaps. You can make it a board if you want to, where you see key decisions and knowledge gaps in a board form. And as a result of that, you can quickly and easily create, you know, all kinds of views that that are workable. And here, if you go here to the board, for example, you can also say, I want to zoom in. So the cards get bigger. As a result of that, you can put more information on the cards, and it is much easier to view. And you can, you know, see more information if that is needed. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's try another one. Let's create a board, the key decision qualification board that we use. Basically we have horizontal lines and vertical lines. Here we choose, and I know that the fields from the top of my head, of course. This is, where is it? Impact. And this is, no, it's this one. And what I want to see is key decisions. Now, as a result of this, now we see, that we have a sort of a quadrant, but it is not sorted as we want it to be. So we go again into the view, we sort this one, and we sort that one. And as a result of that, we now have, a very simple way to classify key decisions. And as a result of that, you immediately have standard functionality where you can make this actually a key decision, or you can make it something else. You cannot see everything on the card. Maybe if I put it a little bit bigger. So as a result of this, you can quickly and easily build all kinds of functionalities in Targetprocess and basically have your own rapid learning cycle views on key decisions, on risks, on core hypothesis, on knowledge gaps, anything. So let's try one other one, which is a report. We had a report, for example, which knowledge gaps or how many knowledge gaps are assigned to knowledge gaps owners. So we can say, well, we want a chart here. We want this to be, and I have to do this.
And as you're doing this, I just have to say that one of the observations that I'm making during this that I had not really seen before is that, of course, Targetprocess was obviously built to support agile processes, and you really see that in the different options that you're being given for everything. But they also understand that what they've really built is a robust database for managing agile projects, and they're not forcing a given methodology on you. So a lot of the other tools that I've seen to support agile, you're forced to use the agile methodology, and you're forced to use the agile, and then you kind of have to make the translation. And here what they're saying is that you can set up a system that, uses the rapid learning cycles method, uses all the terminology in the rapid learning cycle system, and all of that, kind of translation is happening completely underneath the surface at the database level where it belongs, instead of user interface level or at the user level. Yeah.
So let's look at this one. Let's see if we can get this to work. Well, we want to count records. So that's a simple functionality. And we want to do that by user. And then we see here all kinds of different chart types. And I want this one, but it still looks ugly. So I'm going to create some color to it so that every user has his or her own color. Now, as a result, I also want to see, actually the data on the chart. So if I do this, I actually see the numbers here. Below here, I see already the names. Everything is visible. I can say, okay, I'm happy with that. Finish that up. And I, again, have a full functional chart because, again, I can click here, can go to the data, click on a detailed knowledge gap. And again, I have a detailed knowledge gap screen where I can see what the description is, who's responsible, what the status is, etc. So as a result of this, you can easily and quickly build your own, let's say, reports and visualizations. And even more, if you are here, for example, in your knowledge gap dashboard, and you want, for example, this report to become part of this dashboard, you just pick it up, place it here, and as a result, it is part of your dashboard. So you can also customize your own dashboard. Everybody can have his or her dashboard on knowledge gaps, on key decisions, on risks, what have you. If you don't like it, throw it away. And this is only throwing it away from the dashboard. But of course, the report I've created has not been thrown away because that still exists. Okay, this is an overview of, how easily you can set up target process. Let me show you something else which still relates to what we have done so far. So going back to the rapid learning cycles implementation, of course, what you have to do is you have to have teams, and Catherine provided us some test data, but the names in the teams are not actually the same, Catherine, because I've used my colleagues as guinea pigs, as you can see.
Of course.
But what you see is that here you have the team. You can also show the details of the team. Here you see, for example, which learning cycles they are working on. You can see which people are in there and on which products they work. And so this is something you can quickly configure. Also on the users, you can click and you can provide all kinds of info, which teams are they on, which products are they on, which sort of account settings they have, and authorizations they have. The same applies for cadences. We have make a difference between learning cycles and events. Here you see per team what the learning cycles are that they are working on. So that's something you can set up, and here you can see the events, where you basically have integration events or learning cycle events, which are colored yellow, and integration events, which are colored green. And that sort of concludes the demo of target process, how you can set up the basic configuration, how you can extend it yourself if you want to. And some of the things that we have done to get it to work.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so we do have a little time for questions. So if you have two options for questions. We're a small enough group that if you want, you can just unmute yourself, maybe even turn your camera on if you, and go ahead and ask the question directly. You can also, if you don't want to be that visible, since we are recording, you can put it into the chat. That would also be fine. Yeah, and kind of while you guys are doing that, so we do have one question already. It says, you assume that we can manage multiple projects with common team members at once. So how would it look a little different if you had multiple projects?
Oh yeah, so in target process, you have the possibility to define all kinds of projects. Here you see, for example, already product. You see multiple products or multiple projects that you can choose from and you can switch to. I have not configured that yet, but it is very easy to make different projects and different products that you can work on. Actually, you can even have different processes if you like.
Yeah. And my understanding is this is an enterprise tool, right? So it's intended to kind of put all your project data together. It's not intending for you to manage, each project in its own instance, right?
No. You can manage multiple projects. You can group them to products or to projects or to programs. You can even group them to departments if you like to. So yes, you can support many rapid learning cycles programs, even in parallel in this tool. Does this answer the question?
I think it does, yeah. And I know we have a comment from someone else who says that you can also provide access based on the projects. So
yes, of course, you can provide access. For example, like if I go here, can here, for example, access, and it says public, but I can do many things. I can make it private and it's only for me. I can do custom sharing where I can even put names in there and say, okay, these are the people that can actually see this view or cannot see this view. And there's all kinds of things that you can do. Even on this level of the team level and members level, you can also set all kinds of things like a user access, an observer, contributor, or even an administrator, which gives people more functionality, at their fingertips. Yep.
Great. Looks like we've got Richard coming online.
Yeah, hi there. Thanks, Edwin, very much for the presentation. The obvious question is, I'm keen to find out if what you've built here would be available as a template for other people to build upon. Or
Yes,
would we...
yes. No. What we most of the time do is when we provide target process, and if it is specific for rapid learning cycles, we have a target process instance available, which we can provide and we can replicate. And as we replicate that instance, then you can have that instance with the basic configuration that we have created. And based on that, you can build upon and create your own views, create your own reports, create other products and processes as you like.
Brilliant, thank you. And would that be available through Rapid Learning Cycles Institute, or how would we?
It's available through Synergio.
Yeah, so we don't try to get involved in that. It would be, that's a little ridiculous for us to be involved in that. But Synergio is the partner in our network and our affiliate network that also has the partnership with Aptio, who is the creator of Targetprocess. And so they're the source for the Rapid Learning Cycles instance of Targetprocess. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, so basically Aptio is the provider of Targetprocess. We own the Rapid Learning Cycles instance and implementation, and we can resell that to any customer that wants to use it. And of course, we can help with configuring it if you want to.
Yeah, okay, that's clear. Thank you very much.
Okay. So I did have one question, then we'll just kind of close it out here, which is that one of the things that I thought was really interesting about what you did, and this is different from every other tool that I've seen, is that you've actually made it possible to run the kickoff event in the tool, and you're basically populating the database as you go. And one of the things I really like about what you've done is that, again, unlike the other tools I've seen, Targetprocess makes it easy to provide a user interface for that actually makes it make sense, right? So it is very similar to things that I've seen that people have done in Miro or Mural or, some of the other whiteboarding tools out there. And yet what you're actually doing underneath is populating the database. Can you talk a little bit about, your experience using this in a kickoff event environment versus populating it afterwards?
Yeah, we have actually implemented this tool as a collaboration solution, and we didn't want to build an administration solution, because then, you always have to do it afterwards. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things we sometimes do, and maybe Catherine, we're not allowed to do that, we sometimes even do it in the training. So when we do the Rapid Learning Cycles training, we do the exercises, and we do the exercises on paper, and then we say, okay, let's do it now for real. And we give people access to the tool, and instead of, discussing behind the whiteboard on, for example, the core hypothesis, we give them access, they can brainstorm, and we just do it on the screen together with the whole team. And then it, sort of becomes alive for them very, very, very quickly, already during the training. As a result of that, we have, let's say, collected a number of ideas for the core hypothesis. We have a number of candidate key decisions. We have a whole lot of knowledge gaps available. And then during the, let's say, the kickoff event, we still have all that information available. And then we can actually focus on classifying the knowledge gaps, or creating the actual core hypothesis, classifying the knowledge, the key decisions to actual key decisions, prioritizing the knowledge gaps, and then actually building the plan. And so by doing that, we collect information during the training, and we actually build the plan during the kickoff event. And that makes it, for us, a lot more efficient to work.
Mm-hmm. And then what the teams walk out with is the very same learning cycle plan that they'll be using as a project team, not a representation that'll have to be translated into another tool.
Correct. Yeah. Everything is real time. Everything is in the tool and stays in the tool. And what we also find important is that, or at least that's what we see with people, is that everything that they have come up with is actually captured and preserved in the tool. So it's not thrown away, right? And so maybe, if key decisions or if decisions have been brainstormed, and at the end of the day, people find that some of the decisions are actually key decisions, although we've thought it were no-brainers or known solutions, then it's easy, to change the card to the quadrant of the key decision and then work from there again.